Have you ever been like really into a story, right? And everything's going great, you're totally immersed,
Mhm.
and then suddenly it asks you to just accept something that just feels wrong.
Yeah.
Like you can't quite picture it, or maybe it even like rubs you the wrong way, just fundamentally.
Yeah, totally.
So today we're going to do a deep dive into this really interesting phenomenon called imaginative resistance.
It's a fascinating topic, and we're going to be using the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy entry on imaginative resistance to guide our exploration today.
In a really comprehensive piece,
Yeah.
and it lays out how philosophers have grappled with this idea.
It really does.
So, like, why do we sometimes hit this wall when we're reading or watching something and the story wants us to imagine certain things, especially like when it comes to morality?
Right.
What does that even tell us about how our minds work or how we understand right and wrong, or even just how we engage with stories in general?
Yeah, call great question.
So consider this your express lane to understanding this really fascinating corner of philosophy, right?
Buckle up.
So where did this whole idea even come from?
Well, the term imaginative resistance itself actually originated relatively recently, back in 1994 with
Right.
Richard Moran's work.
Okay,
But it's interesting to see that the roots of this discussion actually go back much further.
I see.
Kendall Walton, also writing in 1994, pointed to David Hume's observations.
Oh, Hume, like way back in 1700s.
Yeah, all the way back in 1757
Wow.
in his essay of the Standard of Taste.
Right, of the standard of taste, yeah.
He noted that we readily accept, all sorts of like fantastical or peculiar things in fiction, like
Yeah.
princesses doing the dishes, kings cooking their own meals. He called these like innocent peculiarities.
Yeah, just part of the story, right?
Right, we don't really bat an eye at those. They just add to the story.
You just add flavor.
Yeah, exactly.
But Hume, he noticed that something very different happened when it came to, like, moral deviations in a story.
Exactly. So when fiction portrays what he called vicious manners
Vicious manners. Okay.
without like showing any proper disapproval,
Right.
he argued that this strikes us as like a real flaw.
Yeah.
He said it takes a very violent effort to align our feelings with a story that seems to be like condoning something that we find morally objectionable.
It's not just disagreeing, is it? It's like deeper than
It's
that.
a struggle to even imagine feeling differently.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so interesting about this whole thing. It's not just a mental disagreement.
Right.
It's like our imagination just hits a roadblock.
Absolutely. And that brings us to Tamar Sabo-Gendler,
Okay?
who really sort of framed this as the puzzle of imaginative resistance back in 2000.
Okay.
She really highlighted this contrast between our ability to imagine fantastical things like dragons and magic,
Yeah.
but then we stumble when we're asked to imagine a world where, like, basic moral principles are just completely twisted.
So, like, an author can invent dragons, and we're like, cool dragons, but then they try to depict something like, I don't know, female infanticide as morally praiseworthy. And we're like, whoa, hold on a second. It's
Exactly.
like the author's creative license suddenly has these, like, weird limits.
Exactly. And Gendler actually described this as a sort of doubling of the narrator.
A doubling.
Yeah. So instead of like accepting the moral claim that's being presented as part of the fictional truth of the story,
Right.
we kind of perceive it as just the narrator's opinion, something that we
Mm.
can disagree with and kind of keep separate from the story itself.
That they were putting it in a little box off to the side.
Right, exactly. And it kind of disrupts our immersion in the story.
So it's like this seemingly simple feeling of, I just can't imagine that, actually opens up this whole can of worms, philosophically speaking.
It really does. It gets to the core of how we understand morality, fiction, and even our own minds.
Absolutely. And it gets even more complicated when you consider that in 2004, Brian Weatherson actually broke down the puzzle even further
Oh, yeah, he really helped to clarify things.
into 4 distinct puzzles.
Yeah, 4 distinct but related puzzles.
Okay, so we've got a puzzle within a puzzle now.
Yeah, kinda.
So what are they? Like, how do we untangle this?
All right, so first we have what he calls the imaginative puzzle, which is really the core of the issue.
Okay.
Why do we resist imagining what we're being explicitly asked to imagine, especially in these morally problematic situations?
So, like, give me an example of that.
So he uses this example from a story called Death on a Freeway,
Jeff on a freeway, okay.
where a character named Craig shoots these 2 people for causing a traffic jam.
Oh, wow.
And then the narrator just straight up says, Craig did the right thing.
Yikes.
Right. And we can picture the scene, we can imagine the traffic jam, we can imagine the shooting,
Uh-huh.
but we probably struggle to really imagine that action as being morally justified.
I mean, yeah, that's rough.
Right, so what's the root of that imaginative block? That's the imaginative puzzle.
Okay, I see that. The scenario is clear, but the moral interpretation just feels, I don't know, unimaginable.
Exactly.
So what's the next piece of this puzzle within a puzzle?
Okay, so the second one is what he calls the fictionality puzzle.
The fictionality puzzle, okay.
And this is about how even if we accept the events in death on a freeway as part of the story,
Like, okay, fine. This crazy thing happened in this fictional world.
right, we still resist accepting that it's fictionally true that Craig was right to shoot those people.
Yeah, it's like, the author has the authority to tell us what happens in their world,
Right.
but it's almost like there's a limit to their power to dictate the moral reality of that world.
Right, especially when it clashes with our own very deeply held beliefs about right and wrong.
So it's like we can accept that fictional characters can do bad things, but we struggle to accept that those bad things are actually good within the context of the story.
Exactly.
Okay, that's really interesting.
And then we have the phenomenological puzzle, which is about the actual feeling of resistance.
The feeling, okay.
Right, there's this distinct and often kind of jarring or unpleasant feeling associated with these morally deviant statements in fiction.
Yeah, like that line in Death on a Freeway. Craig did the right thing.
Exactly, it just like stands out.
It sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel the same way as other fictional claims.
It's like a wrong note in a piece of music or something.
That's a great analogy. So, what explains that particular feeling of resistance? That's the phenomenological puzzle.
I see, I see.
And then finally, we have the aesthetic puzzle, which is about how these moral failings might impact the artistic quality of the work itself.
The art itself. Okay.
So, Wetterson actually proposes two ways to think about this.
Okay.
One is that it's tied to the fictionality puzzle. Like if the moral claims don't really fit with the rest of the fictional world that the author has created.
So it's like a kind of inconsistency that weakens the story.
Yeah, exactly. It's an aesthetic flaw. The other way to look at it is to link it back to the imaginative puzzle, like our inability or unwillingness to really engage with the morally repugnant content can actually diminish our aesthetic appreciation of the work as a whole.
So it's not just that we have a moral objection, it's that it actually prevents us from fully connecting with the art on an imaginative level.
Exactly. As Walton put it, sometimes our moral considerations prevent us from really experiencing the work as the author intended.
Okay, I'm starting to see how complex this all is.
It's definitely not a simple issue.
Yeah, so now that we have all these different pieces of the puzzle laid out,
Right.
philosophers have come up with a lot of different explanations for why this imaginative resistance happens.
Oh, yeah. There are a lot of different theories out there.
And these are often grouped into like two broad camps.
Yeah.
Theories that suggest we can't imagine these things,
Right.
and theories that suggest we won't.
Exactly.
So let's start with the can't camp first. The idea is that there's some kind of inability on our part.
Okay, sounds good.
What are the main arguments there?
So within the Kant camp, there's a big group of theories called the dependency violation theories.
Okay, dependency violation, what does that mean?
So the idea is that our resistance stems from an inability to imagine certain really fundamental relationships being different from how we believe they are in the real world.
Okay, so like what kind of relationship?
Well, for example, Kendall Walton,
Yeah.
he's a key figure in this camp.
Yeah.
He argues that morality has a particular relationship with the natural world.
Mm.
So moral properties, like the wrongness of an action, they depend on the non-moral properties of that action.
So like what does that even mean?
So, like, let's take the example of female infanticide.
Okay, tough example, but go on.
We struggle to imagine that being morally right.
I think most people would, yeah.
Right, because that would require us to change this very basic dependency between morality and the natural world.
I see. Like it's not just about changing our opinion, it's about changing how those two things relate to each other.
Exactly. It's like trying to imagine a world where cause doesn't lead to effect in the way we understand it.
It's just like fundamentally unimaginable.
Right.
Okay, so that's Walton's take.
Right, and then Stephen Yablo, he kind of builds on this by focusing on what he calls grokking.
Grokking, what's that?
It's like really deeply understanding concepts where their application depends on our own responses.
Our own responses.
Yeah, like morally right. We understand what that means based on our own reactions and judgments.
Okay.
But when a story declares something like female infanticide morally right, it clashes with our very understanding of that concept.
It's like the story is trying to redefine right and wrong.
Exactly. It's like trying to change the rules of a game that are just deeply ingrained in
Our
us.
minds are like, nope, not playing that game.
Exactly. And then Brian Weatherson, he offers another Kant theory,
Okay.
but his is centered on the idea of virtue within the narrative itself.
Virtue in the narrative.
Yeah, so he suggests that moral claims made in fiction need to be properly supported by the other facts that are presented in the story.
Okay.
So, like, going back to death on a freeway.
Back to Craig in the traffic jam.
Yeah, the claim that Craig did the right thing, it's not really justified just by the fact that, Jack and Jill were arguing in the fast lane.
Right, there's no real connection there.
Exactly. The moral conclusion just doesn't follow from the events as they're depicted.
So it's like a form of narrative incoherence.
Precisely. And then Nils Hennes-Steer, he talks about imaginative and fictionality failure happening when a proposition is inadequately and exhaustively grounded.
Inadequately and exhaustively grounded.
It's a mouthful, but it basically means we just can't find a context either within the story or in our understanding of the world to make sense of it.
Like, it just doesn't fit anywhere.
Right. And then Bradford Scout introduces an interesting angle. He calls it a break of trust.
A break of trust, okay.
So when the evidence within the story itself actually contradicts the author's moral claims?
So, like, they're giving us reasons to doubt them.
Exactly, like saying because she was a girl justifies infanticide.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It undermines our trust in the narrative's moral authority.
So it's like the story is betraying us in a way.
Yeah, kind of, and that makes it harder to accept that claim even within the fiction.
Makes sense. If the story itself is giving us reasons to doubt a moral claim, we're not going to just accept it blindly.
Right.
So we've talked about dependency violation theories. What's the other main branch within the Kant camp?
The other main one is what we call mismatch theories.
Mismatch. Okay, so what's the mismatch?
So these theories suggest that our resistance comes from a conflict between different parts of our own cognitive system.
Like our brain is fighting itself?
In a way, yeah.
How does that work?
So Jonathan Weinberg and Aaron Meskin,
Right.
they draw on these cognitive models of imagination and suggest that there's a conflict between our belief box, which is like our real world beliefs.
Okay, our actual beliefs.
Yeah, and our imagination box, which is where we hold these fictional scenarios.
So when we encounter a morally unacceptable idea in fiction, our real-world beliefs clash with what we're being asked to imagine.
That's it, and our moral judgment system, it kind of kicks in and tries to override or cancel out that imagining.
It's like trying to believe two opposite things at the same time.
Exactly. And then Uku Tuming.
Okay.
He focuses on the role of mental imagery.
Okay, images in our mind.
Yeah, he argues that truly engaging with imagination requires us to create a kind of coherence between the idea we're imagining and the actual mental images we can create.
So if I can't picture it, I can't imagine it.
Well, it's more like if the images I create clash with the idea, it creates resistance.
So, like, if a story says that something terrible is morally good, but the images I have of that thing are all negative, it's going to be hard to reconcile those two things.
Right. Exactly. And then Kathleen Stock, she offers a version of mismatch theory that focuses on counterfactual imagination.
Counterfactual.
Like what if scenarios, especially in stories that are trying to teach a moral lesson.
Okay.
She argues that resistance happens when there's a conflict between our existing moral beliefs and the new moral belief that the narrator is kind of subtly trying to get us to adopt through these counterfactual scenarios.
So it's like the story is saying, imagine if things were different. Wouldn't that be better?
Right. But if that new belief clashes with our existing beliefs, we resist it.
It's like, no, I like my current beliefs just fine.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a good overview of the Kant theories.
Right. The idea that there's something about how our minds work that prevents us from imagining these things.
Now, what about the won't camp? Why might we be actively choosing not to imagine something?
So the won't theories, they really focus on our volitional side.
Volitional.
Like our desires, our values, our intentions.
Okay, so it's not about ability, it's about choice.
Exactly. So Tamar Sabo-Gendler, in her early work on this, she argued that we're unwilling to imagine these morally deviant scenarios, especially in realistic fiction.
Realistic fiction, okay.
Because we're worried about it somehow, like, contaminating our own sense of morality.
Like, we don't want to even think about those things because it might change our own value.
Right, it's like a self-preservation instinct.
Like, I don't want to even play with that idea. It's too dangerous.
Exactly. And then Gregory Curry,
Okay.
he focuses on what he calls desire-like imaginings.
Desire-like.
Okay. He argues that we resist because we don't have the right kind of desires to ground these imaginings in the first place.
So, like, we can't imagine desiring something that we find morally wrong,
Exactly. So if we find something abhorrent in reality, we can't really imagine ourselves desiring it, even in a story.
even if it's make-believe.
Right.
Okay, and then Dustin Stokes, he refines this even further with value-like imaginings.
Yeah, he takes it a step further.
So not just about the desire itself, but whether we would even want to have that desire.
Right. It's like we don't even want to be the kind of person who could desire such a thing.
So it's a second-order desire.
Exactly. A desire about our desires.
Okay, now that's getting pretty meta.
It is, but it helps to explain why we might have such a strong resistance to certain ideas.
So we've got Gendler's contamination worry, Curry's desire-like imaginings, and Stokes' value-like imaginings.
Right. And then more recent won't theories have emphasized the role of our actual emotions.
Emotions.
Yeah, so Neil Connolly and Niels Frentzen,
Okay.
they both argue that our real moral feelings and emotional responses, they can make it really hard to accept morally deviant fictional scenarios.
Like our gut reaction is just no way.
Exactly. So our revulsion at the idea of female infanticide, for example, it makes it difficult to accept a story that says it's okay.
It's like our emotions are acting as a safeguard.
Right, keeping our imagination in check.
So emotions are like our internal moral compass, guiding our imagination and sometimes restricting it.
Exactly. And Adam Green, he connects imaginative resistance to what's known as moral dumbfounding.
Moral dumbfounding.
It's where we have this really strong moral reaction, but we can't really explain why.
Like we just know it's wrong, but we don't know how to articulate it.
Right, and he argues that we resist narratives that support morally unacceptable positions because we just shut down any discussion of those issues.
It's like, nope, not going there. End of discussion.
Exactly, and Eminhan Datuna, she proposes a more integrated view.
Okay, integrated.
She suggests that both can't and what factors are at play.
So it's not either, it's both.
Right, so she says Kantianism
Okay.
explains why we might struggle to imagine these moral deviations in a broad sense, like to really grasp a whole world where things are morally different.
So like the big picture is hard to imagine.
Right, and she calls that panoramic imagining.
Panoramic.
But then she says wantingism explains our unwillingness to imagine them in a more focused way. Like we might be able to focus on a specific scenario, but we resist fully embracing its moral implications in a wider context.
So we can handle the small stuff, but the big picture is a no-go.
Exactly. And then Julia Driver.
Okay, another perspective.
She focuses on the psychological necessity of our moral belief.
Psychological necessity.
Yeah, so she says that our moral beliefs are so essential to our well-being and our understanding of the world.
Okay, like they're part of who we are.
Right, and that makes it really hard to imagine them being false, even in a fictional context.
It's like imagining that up is down or something.
Exactly, it just doesn't compute.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground with the can't and want theories.
We have. They offer a lot of different explanations for why we might resist certain ideas.
But now there's a whole other perspective that challenges whether imaginative resistance is even a unique phenomenon that needs all these explanations.
Right, and that's where the eliminativist theories come in.
Eliminativists, so they're trying to eliminate the whole concept of imaginative resistance.
Well, not exactly. They're more like saying that we're overthinking it.
Oh, okay, so what's their argument?
So, for example, Kathleen Stock,
Okay.
she emphasizes the importance of context.
Context, okay.
She argues that what looks like a resistance to imagining morally deviant things is often just a lack of enough context to make those ideas make sense.
So, like, if we had more information, we might not resist.
Exactly. Like if the author gives us a really detailed and maybe even unusual set of circumstances, then the resistance might go away.
So it's not the moral claim itself we're resisting, it's the lack of a believable justification.
Right. And she's actually critical of the idea that we should resist even when there's no supporting context in the story.
Like we should give the author the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, kind of. And then Kane Samuel Todd,
Okay.
he argues that our reactions of resistance are just naturally different depending on the story and the person reading it.
So there's no right or wrong way to react.
Exactly. He says it's all subjective and influenced by our individual beliefs and experiences.
Okay, so for the eliminativists, what we see as this puzzling resistance is just normal variation in how we engage with ideas.
Right. It's not a special thing that needs a special explanation.
Interesting. So It's not that we can't or won't imagine something. It's just that our reactions are different based on who we are and what we're reading.
Exactly.
Okay, this is getting really complex, but we've been talking about resisting specific propositions. But is that the only thing that triggers this kind of resistance?
That's a good question. And according to Richard Moran, the answer is no.
Okay, so what else can trigger it?
He argues that we don't just resist specific claims,
Mm-hmm.
but we also resist whole perspectives.
Perspectives.
Yeah, like trying to see the world from someone else's point of view, especially if that point of view is morally repugnant.
So it's not just about understanding the idea. It's about really inhabiting that viewpoint.
Exactly. And he says that our resistance is tied to our actual emotional responses to the story.
So it's like we're not just thinking about it, we're actually feeling it.
Right. And Elizabeth Camp, she builds on this with her perspective-based account.
A perspective-based account, okay.
She says that engaging with fiction involves taking on perspectives that the narrator kind of gives us.
So like we're supposed to see the world through the character's eyes.
Right. But resistance happens when we're unwilling to take on those perspectives.
Like if we just can't relate to the character.
Yeah, or if we object to their morals or their aesthetics.
So we're not just resisting an idea, we're resisting a whole way of seeing the world.
Exactly.
Okay. And this leads to the question of scope, right?
Scope.
Like, is morality the only thing that can trigger this imaginative resistance? Or are there other areas where we encounter similar blocks?
Yeah, that's a key question. And as we touched on earlier with the Kant theories, the scope might be broader than just morality.
Okay, so what else might trigger it?
Well, Walton suggested that even aesthetic deviations, like a really bad joke being presented as hilarious.
A bad joke
Okay.
can trigger resistance.
Like we just can't accept it as funny. Right. And then Yablo, he extended it to what he called deviant uses of response-dependent descriptive concepts.
Okay, break that down for me.
So, like, if someone calls a round maple leaf oval,
Yeah, this just seems wrong.
exactly, it violates our understanding of those concepts.
And Weatherson, he went even further.
Oh, yeah, he listed all sorts of things.
Like what?
Deviant epistemic evaluations, like when someone believes something that's clearly false, attributions of mental states that don't fit the situation.
So like someone being happy when they should be sad.
Right, and even certain kinds of ontological claims, like trying to imagine a television that's also a knife.
A TV knife, that's just weird.
Exactly, it just doesn't make sense.
So it seems like anything that fundamentally violates how we understand the world, whether it's moral, aesthetic, or just conceptual, can trigger resistance.
Right, and then Anna Matani raises another interesting point.
Okay, what's that?
She challenges the idea that resistance only happens when there's a direct conflict with our existing beliefs.
So like we can resist even if we don't have a strong opinion on something.
Exactly. So she gives the example of a morally ambiguous action that the author just straight up says is right. Matani suggests that we might resist this even if we don't have a strong feeling about whether the action is right or wrong.
It's like, don't tell me what to think. I haven't decided yet.
Right. And as we discussed earlier, the eliminativists really emphasize the importance of context.
Context, right?
And Gendler focused on the realist genre.
Realistic fiction, yeah.
Our expectations, which are shaped by the kind of story we're reading or watching, play a big role in our resistance.
So like we might be more willing to accept crazy stuff in a fantasy novel.
Exactly, because our expectations are different.
And there's been some research that backs this up, showing that our familiarity with the genre and how authors play with genre conventions can really affect our resistance.
It's fascinating stuff.
And Bradford Scow, he brings up the idea of salience.
Salience, okay.
He says that we only really resist a moral judgment in a story when we're actually paying attention to it. Like, if we're really engrossed in the story, we might not even notice something morally problematic.
Right. It's only when it becomes salient, when it stands out to us, that we resist.
That makes sense. It's like sometimes you finish a book and then later you're like, wait a minute, that was messed up.
Exactly. And then Adriana Clavel Vasquez,
Okay.
she brings in the idea of bias, particularly gender bias.
Bias, yeah, that's a big one.
She talks about how we often see this difference between rough heroes,
Okay.
who are male protagonists with flaws that we like.
The lovable rogue.
Exactly. But then rough heroines are much less common.
Female characters with flaws.
Right. And they often face a lot more criticism for those same flaws.
It's like we judge them more harshly.
Right. And our existing biases about gender can really shape what we're willing to accept in characters.
So it's not just about the story, it's about our own baggage that we bring to it.
Exactly, and Chris Goffin and Stacy Friend, they even suggest that imaginative resistance can sometimes be a way to protect ourselves from harmful biases in fiction.
So it's like a defense mechanism.
Yeah, but they also point out that this resistance itself can be biased, so it's not a perfect solution.
It's complicated.
It is, and all of this has led to a lot of new research that focuses on how resistance varies between people and contexts.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all phenomenon.
Right. It's much more nuanced than that.
And then to make things even more complicated, the term imaginative resistance itself has been questioned.
Oh yeah, some people argue that imagination might not even be the right word.
So what are they saying?
Well, Miyazono and Liao, they came up with a way to categorize these different approaches.
Okay, categorize them how?
They divide them into cognitive imagination theories,
Cognitive.
which focus on belief-like imagining.
So like our ability to imagine something as being true.
Right, then conative imagination theories.
Right.
It's about desire-like or value-like imagining.
So can we imagine wanting or valuing something?
Exactly, and then finally, no imagination theories.
No imagination at all.
Well, not exactly. They're just saying that imagination might not be the main driving force.
Okay, so the Kant and want theories we talked about, they mostly fit into the first two categories.
Right.
What are some examples of these no imagination theories?
So Tamar Saba-Gendler, in some of her later work,
Yeah.
she proposed that a
Pretty
leaf,
safe,
yeah, it's this
Yeah.
more automatic, unconscious response.
Like a gut feeling.
Exactly. She says a leaf might be responsible for some of our resistance rather than conscious imagination.
So it's not that we're thinking about it and choosing to resist, it's just an automatic reaction.
Right, like a feeling of unease when you see a character do something wrong, even though you know it's not real.
Yeah, like a visceral reaction.
Exactly. And then Ronald D'Souza,
Okay.
he argues that resistance can come from a failure to feel the right emotions in response to the story.
So like if the story wants us to feel sad, but we feel happy instead.
Or if the story wants us to feel okay about something morally wrong, but we just can't.
It's like an emotional mismatch.
Exactly, and that mismatch creates resistance.
So we've come to the end of this deep dive, and it's clear that imaginative resistance is a really complex issue.
It really is.